Good job completing our ACT reading exercise. If you haven't already, check out this exercise video with actual ACT reading problems because today we're going to be talking about answers with explanation for problems in this video. Hi, I'm Rina from CollegeGate Academy, the ACT-specific institute in Roppongi, Tokyo. We also offer online classes for those living outside of Japan or Tokyo, so check out collegegateacademy.com for more information. Today, we're going to be talking about answers and explanation, but before we start, I just want to say that this is the most crucial part of studying for the ACT. You want to especially focus on questions that you missed and understand exactly why you missed them so that you don't make the same mistakes again. You might even want to take notes and write down which problems you missed and why you missed them, and reread those notes before your test date to refresh your memory. Now let's begin. One of the tips for speed reading I talked about in this previous video was to pay attention to main ideas. Main ideas of a sentence, a paragraph, or the entire passage. Bingo! There you go. This is a question that asks for the main idea of the entire passage. So let's look at the options. A sounds pretty good to me because if you look at the passage holistically, it talks mostly about the present, not much about the past nor the future. And what's taking place in the present? The race he's participating in. That's the first thing I'd notice. Another thing is that the first sentence of this passage also mentions that this is his best race. So explaining it as the swim of his life matches. The language matches. At the end of this passage, he also talks about his thought process that motivated him to sprint last minute. So A sounds pretty good to me. Let's keep it. Let's move on to B. I already said that the passage focuses on the present and rarely talks about the past. So the fact that B is suggesting something to remember from the past doesn't sound right as a primary idea. I would already eliminate this one. He also never participated in the junior nationals because he couldn't make the cut twice. It's mentioned in the first part of the first paragraph that he missed the cut last year and the day before. So let's cross B out. Let's move on to C. The first thing I think here is that he never mentioned his glorious and joyous experience of winning a competition. So I already think this is not right. He actually said he didn't make the cut twice to junior nationals, so he only mentions his experience of losing competitions, but never winning in the past. So let's cross C out. Moving on to D. Again, this passage focuses on the present, so the words chronicle and childhood don't sound right. He never talked about his childhood. So let's cross out D. And we have A left. If you see what I did here, even if I'm pretty sure that A is the correct answer, I still went through all the options and eliminated them before going back to A. And this helps me avoid making stupid errors for trick questions. When I read this question, I'm already thinking, well, the passage focused mainly on the present, the race he's participating in Houston. And it would be a really detailed question if they asked for chronological events that happened in the present, the race. So the answer most probably won't be an event from this race. Several stories from the past were brought up, but the main anecdote from the past was in the 5th paragraph, the one that happened in the autumn. And this might be a key event from the past, so I'll see what happens. This is what actually went into my mind when I did these questions. Let's look at the options. F happened today, the present. So I said an event from present probably won't be the answer. So let's look at the next option. G is the autumn event I was talking about earlier. So this might be it. And we know right now for sure that G happened before F. So let's cross out F. H, this is from yesterday. It's mentioned in the first paragraph that he missed the cut. And we know for sure that H happened after G because it was yesterday. So let's cross out H. J, this is also from today, just like F. So J is also not it. Let's cross out J, and we have G as our correct answer. The narrator talks about the natatorium being practically empty right over here in paragraph 2. This is before the race started. And I'm trying to remember what kind of tone the passage was being delivered during that section. And I remember it being negative, angry, and unconfident. So let's see if that's actually correct. Yep, in line 25, it mentions that he is angry and disheartened. So B and D can't be right because he didn't have that positive energy. C also suggests the energetic positive tone. The coach started to pace right when the boys started to cheer in the 3rd paragraph. And this is when the tone of this entire passage shifts from negative to positive. Because the empty natatorium is mentioned when the tone was still negative, C also can't be right tone-wise. Okay, let's look at the last option, A. A has this unhopeful tone that matches with what we're looking for. If you also want to look at the details, from line 18, he does mention the perfect racing conditions he was hoping for. He mentions energetic right over here. And was he energetic? No, he was disheartened. So A is correct. After reading the first 2 words of the first option, I already know that F isn't right because I remember the world slowing down at this moment. And it is indeed written in paragraph number 4, the world slows down. So F isn't right, let's cross that out. And I also know G isn't right because it says rush fast. Let's cross F and G out. I don't know if you already noticed, but I don't just cross out letters of options that aren't right. I also cross out words in options that are not right as an answer. So I wouldn't just cross out F and G, I would also cross out speed up and rush fast. And this helps me avoid making stupid errors and logically understand why I cross these options out. So now we only have options H and J left. Let's go back to the 4th paragraph. The world slows down, and though everything else moves around us at the same frenetic speed, we're afforded the opportunity to reflect in real time rather than in retrospect. Now we know that everything else in the world was moving at a normal speed. He was indeed reflecting in real time, so J is correct. So for this question, I would actually go back to the passage. And from speed reading, I remember the answer being mentioned in the last part of this passage. So let's go back to the last paragraph. You'll find here, what I understood, not later, but right then in the water, was how little the swim added up to in the world. Then he goes on saying that because swimming didn't really mean a lot to the world, swimming was his alone. So C is the right answer. The last paragraph also mentions what the main character already knew about swimming. It says over here, swimming I had long understood, and goes on about things that he already knew. So A and D aren't correct because these are things he already knew from the past. Option B also isn't the right answer because he didn't just realize that he had trained for more than a year. He did mention briefly in line 70 that I had spent more than a year training for this one swim, and when it was finished, the world would be no different than before it began. But what did he just realize? Again, it's mentioned in the sentence before, over here, what I understood, not later, but right then in the water, was how little this swim added up to in the world. So this last part of the sentence was actually elaborating on what he just realized. So this was his point. In the first part of the sentence, I had spent more than a year training. This was just a fact, and he was just saying that to make a point later on in the sentence. So this is not something he realized, so B is not the correct answer. So the main idea of the word end was actually mentioned in line 63. My greatest effort would come when I was down to my last opportunity, as in the main character would do his best when he knows that it's his last chance or last opportunity. So the only option that is related to last opportunity is option G. So G is the correct answer. He also mentions here in line 76, exhaustion now for the sake of fitness later. But what was his real end goal here? To go on a diet and become more fit? No. He was working hard so that he could reach his goal of winning a competition. His end goal was never to become fit, but to become fit in order to win a competition. So F isn't right. H also isn't the right answer because he never mentioned his memory of his final Friday night practice. He just mentioned his general Friday night practices. So let's go back to line 77. It says, all those Friday nights spent in the pool in pursuit of an end that seemed always one step further on. So it wasn't the final Friday night he was talking about. It was all those Friday nights that he spent so that he could achieve an end, achieve the goal, winning the competition that always seemed like it was unreachable. J also isn't the right answer because he was actually the only one in the race. If you go back to paragraph 2, it says, I was not only the only one in the race. So let's cross out J. Even if you didn't catch this detail because of speed reading, he never mentioned about his surroundings or competitors. So J can't be right. Even if I speed read, I remember this being a small-scaled race. And if you want to look at the details, it's actually mentioned in line 10. It says, an informal, unadvertised event thrown together at the last minute. So B isn't right because it wasn't advertised. Ooh, D sounds perfect, right? D it is. With A, it's also mentioned in the passage that most swimmers were sprinters and that he was one of the only few, if not the only one, swimming long distance. It's mentioned in line 13, most were short, flapping sprints. So let's cross out A. For C, students who chose this probably saw the numbers 500 and 1,000 mentioned in the passage. These numbers were mentioned not because these distances were the only races featured, but just to mention that the main character swam 500 yards for the regional meet the day before and couldn't make the cut, and so he's swimming 1,000 yards instead for the time trial in Houston. So C isn't the right answer. Don't get tricked. Let's cross out C. D is the right answer. I instantly remember that this line was from a cheering boy and that this line triggered the tone to shift from disheartened to hopeful. And I also explained about the tone change when I explained answers for question 3, so if you skip that part, go back to question 3. I would eliminate F because if the boy was criticizing the narrator's efforts, then this line wouldn't cause a shift in tone for a more positive one. And this is the same reason why I would also eliminate J. He was becoming more positive, not angry. So let's cross out F and J. Now we have G and H left. If you go back to the passage to line 35, it says, as if to say. This tells you that the main character is assuming what the cheering boy is saying based on his gestures. So H is correct, speculation. For question number 9, let's go back to line 46. It says, all summer long, my teammates and I swam under an open sky. After this day, we would spend the rest of the season in a dank and moldy indoor pool. So it sounds like these swimmers don't really like the indoor pool. So C is correct. If you couldn't catch this detail from speed reading, try guessing. Would you feel more liberated and productive in a confined indoor pool than the outer pool? To some extent, you could guess and follow your logic. The quote, jump, was from the 5th paragraph that talks about the autumn incident. I talked about the autumn incident in question number 2, so if you skip the explanation, go back and listen to it. So it can't be J nor H because both of them talk about incidents from the present, the race in Houston. So let's cross out J and H. Let's look closer. In line 58, it says, one of my teammates called out jump. So his teammate said jump, which means that it's not G. Let's cross out G and F is the correct answer. Do you have any other questions on ACT reading problems? Comment down below, and if you need more clarification, then let me know so I can help you. If you learned anything today, then hit the thumbs up button and subscribe to our YouTube channel.